Regarding abortion, was Kamala Harris correct when she claimed in the presidential debate that women were bleeding out and dying in the hospital parking lots? Surely this is fake news. Surely the abortion bans don't endanger women's lives, because obviously aren't the abortion doctors the murderers? Women have been bleeding out in parking lots in the hospitals where the doctors refuse to care for them, fearing lawsuits, though this is rare. Women usually die at home after being turned away from the hospital or on the operating tables after their care has been delayed for far too long, and they are on death's door. Recently, 2 science reporters for the Atlantic magazine have interviewed doctors in several states that document when women's lives have been lost to draconian anti-abortion laws. In more cases where they either nearly died or were rendered sterile, or both. This reminds us of a woman who died in Catholic Ireland due to draconian abortion legislation. In the very worst case, neither mother nor baby survives. In 2012, a 31-year-old woman in Ireland named Savita died after her water broke at 17 weeks. Doctors had refused to end her pregnancy, waiting for the fetus's heartbeat to stop on its own. When it did, she went into labor, but by then, she had become infected. She died from sepsis 3 days later. Her death galvanized the abortion rights movement in Ireland, and the country legalized the procedure in 2018. Other recent examples are from the past few months in deep South red states. In Texas, a woman whose water broke at 18 weeks, far too early for her baby to survive outside the womb, was unable to get an abortion until she became septic. She spent 3 days in the ICU, and one of her fallopian tubes permanently closed from scarring, which meant she was sterile. In Tennessee, a woman lost 4 pints of blood delivering her dead fetus in a hospital's holding area. In Oklahoma, a bleeding woman with a non-viable pregnancy was turned away from 3 separate hospitals. One said she could wait in the parking lot until her condition became life-threatening. Another reporter describes how Amber Nicole Thurman died on August 19, 2022, leaving behind her 6-year-old son. In Georgia, where Thurman lived, abortions became illegal from the time when a detectable human heartbeat was present, around 6 weeks into pregnancy. The law came into effect in late July of that year, at the same time that Thurman, a 28-year-old medical assistant, discovered that she was 6 weeks pregnant with twins. Too late for the abortion. She scheduled a surgical operation in North Carolina, took a day off work, got up at 4 a.m. to drive 4 hours with a friend to the clinic. But they hit traffic, and Thurman missed her appointment. The clinic could not give her another time slot because so many women came from out of state, who were also facing tough new laws. So Thurman was offered abortion pills instead, which are usually safe. But in less than 5% of cases, though, women need another dose or a procedure called a D&C to empty the uterus completely. In countries and states where abortion is legal, this is a simple and routine procedure that carries little risk. But not in Georgia. Back home, Thurman's bleeding would not stop. She went to the hospital at 6:51 p.m. on August 18th, and medical examinations showed all the classic signs that her abortion was incomplete, and that the tissue remaining inside her was poisoning her blood. But doctors did not give her a D&C, nor did they do so the next morning as her condition continued to worsen. When she was finally taken to the operating theater at 2 p.m., her condition was so bad that her doctors started to remove her bowel and uterus. But it was too late. Thurman's heart stopped on the operating table. A Catholic woman also died in Poland, where abortion is illegal in almost all circumstances. The 30-year-old pharmacist, Dorota Lalick, died in 2023 after a Catholic hospital refused to offer her a D&C when her water broke at 5 months. Instead, she was advised to lie down with her legs up. She died of sepsis 3 days later, the same condition that killed Amber Thurman, and the same condition that killed 31-year-old Savita, the woman whose death from sepsis galvanized the campaign to legalize abortion in Ireland. For every death, there are dozens of near misses. The ABC moderator was correct when she fact-checked Trump that there is no state, blue or red, where it is legal to execute babies after they are born. Only about 5% of abortions are performed during the last trimester, when abortion is necessary to protect the life of the mother and where the fetus is not viable outside of the womb. Miscarriages occur in 10 to 20% of cases where the woman knows she's pregnant. Typically, the body self-aborts a fetus when it senses it would be malformed or would be non-viable if it developed further. Much of this hastily written anti-abortion legislation also bans abortions of ectopic pregnancies, where the embryo attaches itself outside the uterus, like in the fallopian tubes, which occurs in less than 2% of pregnancies. It is impossible for the embryo to develop into a fetus, let alone be viable, and it always endangers the life of the mother. While many ectopic pregnancies self-abort without physician intervention, some do not. Why can't doctors perform ectopic pregnancies without worrying about whether they will be sued or lose their medical license? These draconian laws against abortions do threaten women's lives. But politicians not only do not have the medical knowledge to draft compassionate anti-abortion legislation, they fear the political repercussions of being soft on abortion if they offer reasonable amendments to correct shortcomings in the law. They refuse to listen. They refuse to believe that anti-abortion legislation is imperfect. Often these draconian laws have no exception for rape or incest, not even for little girls who are far too young to safely carry a baby to term. Even those laws that carve out an exception that abortions are permitted to save the mother's life are not enough, because in actual practice doctors cannot say with 100% certainty that the mother's life is in danger, and when they wait until death is imminent, often death cannot be halted. The abortion laws should instead permit the doctors to act to preserve the mother's health rather than her life, as the doctors interviewed suggest. Now, in prior videos, we've questioned whether it is fair to characterize the two sides of the abortion debate as pro-life and pro-choice. Is the opposite of pro-life pro-death? Does everyone who is pro-choice enjoy killing babies? Another related question is, will those who do not support a radical pro-life, no abortion under any circumstances, burn in hell? This is a meme that totally ignores compassion, that refuses to believe that those considering abortion have real life-changing problems that they're facing. Now, what liberals often don't realize is that the phrase pro-choice strikes at the core of religious beliefs. The term pro-compassion is a far better narrative, a better message. The phrase pro-choice implies to a devout believer that there's no absolute truth, that there is no God who represents absolute morality, that every man can formulate what is right and wrong in their own eyes, that moral truth is relative. Today, Christianity's reputation is smeared with the suspicion that Christians are not compassionate, that they are instead cruel, that indeed cruelty is the point. In the matter of abortion, we need to be pro-compassion and pro-doctor. Whatever the law of the land is, abortion will always be an individual decision, often decided under the advisement of a physician. Let Jesus be the judge. That is his job, not ours. Now, what are the medical dilemmas surrounding abortion? The dissenting Supreme Court justices in the Dobbs decision warned that the hastily written decision would likely endanger the care women receive for miscarriages. One problem is that abortifacients, medications that induce abortions, are often used to treat miscarriages, so dead fetus tissue is expelled from the body. So if you outlaw these medications, you're basically outlawing medications for miscarriages. Dobbs enables legislatures that seek to impose draconian penalties on doctors and hospitals that perform abortions. Doctors incur hundreds of thousands of dollars and up to a decade in medical schools, and hospitals invest tens of millions of dollars in their facilities. So they are very reluctant to challenge draconian anti-abortion laws that are decided by far right-wing judges who do not care whether they destroy careers and institutions in their decisions. They have no choice but to endanger women's lives so that they can prove that their lives are in danger. The best proof is to wait until the women are close to death, so then there is no doubt that their life is in danger. Sarah Zhang of the Atlantic magazine interviews Kylie Cooper, an obstetrician specializing in high-risk pregnancies in Idaho, a state that has passed draconian anti-abortion laws. Soon after the law became effective, she had a young mother with a troubled pregnancy. The problem was not only did her ultrasound indicate the baby likely had Down syndrome, he had a barely formed heart. There was no hope that the baby could survive. Carrying the pregnancy to term would also endanger the mother's life. However, in Idaho, performing an abortion for any reason whatsoever is a felony. Cooper had to tell a mother that she had to get closer to death for her to abort. Idaho's abortion ban has no exceptions for lethal fetal anomalies. Subsequent intense lobbying by physicians in Idaho resulted in legislation that did not go far enough in shielding doctors sufficiently so they could make the hard decisions needed to save the lives of mothers with problem pregnancies. Many obstetricians have left Idaho and other states with draconian anti-abortion legislation, and often hospitals in these deep red states will airlift problem pregnancies to states where life-affirming care is not illegal. Many hospitals in these problem states have simply closed down their labor and delivery units altogether. Our reporter Sarah Zhang interviewed an obstetrician on problem pregnancies. The case that most distressed her were where the umbilical cord had prolapsed into the vagina, compressing the cord and exposing the baby and mother to infection. When this happens, the loss of the baby is sadly inevitable. Previously at her Catholic hospital, she would suggest terminating a problem pregnancy before the mother became infected, so she could go home to recover. Now she told patients that they had no choice but to wait until they went into labor or became infected, or until a fetus's heart stopped beating, slowly deprived of oxygen from its compressed umbilical cord, lingering for several days. Thompson did not know that a fetus could take so long to die this way. She was used to intervening much sooner. She found forcing her patients to wait like this morally disgusting. The doctor explained, "Every time I take care of a patient in this scenario, it makes me question why I'm staying here." It ate at her to put her own legal interests before her patient's health. She knew that if a zealous prosecutor decided she had acted too hastily, she could lose years of her career and her life defending herself, even if she were ultimately vindicated. But if she made a self-protective decision to delay care and a patient died, she wasn't sure how she could go on. Our obstetrician explains, "From a moral perspective, that's something that you cannot recover from as a doctor." Our other author, Helen Lewis, concludes, "The story of Amber Nicole Thurman's death fills me with cold rage. This did not need to happen. Without Dobbs, it would not have happened. And it will keep happening. Something has gone terribly wrong in America when people who define themselves as pro-life have sentenced a small boy to go to bed tonight and every night without his mother." Now we'll discuss the sources we used for this video. Our primary source, the Atlantic magazine, was founded in 1857 as a literary and abolitionist magazine, and many influential writers over the decades have been featured in its pages. And the Atlantic magazine is my favorite news source. Over the past 40 years, I've found their articles both balanced and provoking. These articles have more horrifying tragedies caused by the Dobbs decision. How can Americans become aware of these horrifying tragedies when they go unreported in the right wingnut media outlets like Fox News and Newsmax? Well, these Americans simply declare that these eyewitness accounts are fake news, since they're not discussed by conservative media. Do we need to wait another decade until every American knows some young mother who has died because hospitals refuse them life-saving care? The Atlantic magazine endorsed Abraham Lincoln for president, but declined to become directly involved in politics for over 100 years after the Civil War. They broke this tradition, endorsing Lyndon Johnson in the Great Society reforms, and after that opposing Donald Trump every time he ran for president. By endorsing Lincoln, LBJ, and opposing Trump, the Atlantic magazine seeks to preserve democracy and civil rights. Other important sources are the Roe v. Wade and Dobbs decisions themselves. They are not intimidating. They're written in plain English. The obscure legal language is easily passed over. In our prior reflections on abortion, we quote both these opinions in depth. We also quote from and agree with the sections in the Catholic Catechism that discuss abortion. These and other sources are discussed in other reflections. And also the current Pope Francis has encouraged balance on the issue of abortion, that the issue of abortion, though important, should not define Catholicism and Christianity. The YouTube description includes a link to our PowerPoint script that we uploaded to SlideShare and also our blog. Please support this channel by sharing this video with your friends and by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons and by clicking on the Amazon links to purchase any of the books we discussed, which will earn us a very small affiliate commission. And please consider becoming a patron of our channel. Plus, we will host special discussion groups for our patrons. Plus, you can click on the Meetup or small M icon to participate in our online discussions, where we practice our future YouTube scripts. And please click on the links for other videos that will broaden your knowledge and improve your soul.